People praised Neca's work, but nobody asked why her customers always came back with pain. Until one quiet customer started paying close attention, and what she found shocked everyone. Before Neca owned a salon, she worked as an apprentice for a famous stylist called Madame Clara. She stayed there for 4 years, but she didn't learn much. Madame Clara never trusted her to touch real customers. Neca only swept the floor, washed hair, and ran errands every day. She wanted to learn real styling, but whenever she tried to watch closely, Madame Clara shouted, "You are not ready." "He will spoil someone's hair." Other girls who joined after her were already styling customers and even earning small money on weekends. They bought new clothes and new phones, but Neca couldn't. Her mother sold a cara on the roadside. Her younger brother was always sick and needed medicine. Sometimes they slept without food. Still, Neca didn't complain because she believed she would one day become a real stylist and help her family. Then, one rainy season, Madame Clara got sick and closed the salon for 2 whole months. She didn't pay the apprentices and told them to wait. Those months were very hard for Neca. She stayed home with no income, no hope, and no plan. She tried helping her mother at the akara stall, but it was not enough. One evening, she sat outside thinking about her life. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She wondered if she had wasted her time. She wondered if Madame Clara even planned to certify her one day. A neighbor who knew her story told her, "If you wait for Madame to settle you, you may wait forever. If you believe you can do this work, start small. Nobody starts big." That night, Neca could not sleep. She kept thinking about those words. The next week, she used the little money she had saved to rent a tiny wooden shop beside the road. She cleaned it, placed one small mirror, one plastic chair, and a stool. She borrowed a dryer and bought some cheap products. Nothing was perfect, but the shop was hers. She opened her salon with a handwritten sign outside, "Neca Hair Palace, neat and affordable." The road ahead was not easy, but she told herself, "I will do everything to make this work." She didn't know that this promise would push her into choices she never planned to make. When she opened, she believed that once she braided people's hair, they would return again and again. That was how she thought business worked. She arrived early every day, cleaned the shop, dusted the mirror, and waited full of hope. Her first week went well. A few people came, neighbors and church members. They wanted cornrows, simple weaving, or needed help loosening old braids. Neca handled all of them gently. She braided slowly and carefully, the way she wished she had been allowed to learn as an apprentice. When each customer stood in front of the mirror and saw how neat their hair looked, they smiled. "Neca, your hands are soft," one said. "I will come back," another said. "Let me snap picture." "This is neat." Someone even promised to bring her sister. Those words warmed Neca's heart. She believed her future was finally opening, but 3 weeks passed and none of them returned. She waited from morning till night, but no familiar customer walked in. She thought maybe they were busy or waiting for their hair to roughen. But then she started seeing them outside a church, in the market, at shops. Whenever she greeted them, they said happily, "My hair is still neat. It hasn't roughed at all, almost 1 month, and I haven't changed it." They meant it as praise. But to Neca, it became a problem. People loved her work so much that they didn't return fast. Some came back after 1 month, some after 3 weeks. Her braids were neat, but her business was not growing. Rent was due, products finished fast, food became expensive. Her brother still needed medicine. She had no other income. She lowered her prices. Same thing. People braided once and didn't return soon. She offered free washing, but nobody came early enough to enjoy it. One rainy evening, she sat alone in her salon with her head on the table. Fear filled her chest. "Can talent alone carry me?" She asked herself. "What if this shop closes? What will happen to my family?" Then she remembered something her Aunt Rita once said. "Repeat customers are the secret to survival." She repeated it quietly. Repeat customers. Repeat customers. That night she couldn't sleep. By the next week, things became worse for Neca. Bills were growing fast, customers reduced. New people rarely came. She knew she needed a different idea, something that would make customers return sooner. but she didn't know what that something was. Still, she kept thinking about Aunt Rita's words. Repeat customers are the secret to survival. So Neca began watching other salons around her area. She noticed things she never paid attention to before. Some stylists always had full shops even when their braids were not neat. Some customers returned every 1 or 2 weeks, even when their hair was painful or too tight. Some customers even complained loudly, but they still came back. That made Neca wonder, maybe people don't return because of perfection. Maybe something else makes them come back fast. One afternoon, while she was buying hair products in the market, she overheard two stylists talking. One bragged, "My customers always come back quickly." The other laughed and said, "Nah, because your braids no day last." Neca walked away quietly, but those words stayed with her all evening. That night she sat with her mom. Her mother didn't know anything was wrong. She just said, "Neca, don't give up. God will help you." Neca nodded, but her mind was far away. She kept thinking about what made hair get old faster, what made customers return sooner, what made a scalp feel uncomfortable enough to bring someone back. Then she remembered something from Madame Clara's salon. One day she saw Madame Clara throw away a half-used jar of relaxer. "This relaxer is too strong," Clara said. "If I use it wrongly, it will cause itching on the scalp." That memory lit a small spark inside Neca. She didn't jump into the idea immediately. She spent days thinking, pacing around her shop, staring at her empty product shelf and the rent reminder in her drawer. Another week passed with only one paying customer. Fear hit her again. "If I don't do something, this salon will close," she told herself. So she went to the market and bought a small jar of extra strong relaxer. She told herself she wasn't trying to damage anyone's hair. She just thought that if customers felt some discomfort earlier, they would return faster. She convinced herself it was only for survival. That night, after closing her shop, she sat alone. She placed a strong relaxer beside her normal hair cream. She stared at them for a long time. One voice said, "This is wrong." Another voice said, "You're not harming anyone. They will only come back sooner." Finally, she mixed a small amount of the relaxer into her cream. She stirred it and poured it into an unlabeled container. She hid it deep inside her drawer. The next morning, her first customer came for box braids. When Neca finished the hair, she rubbed a tiny amount of the mixture on the scalp and said sweetly, "This will make it last and shine." She did the same to the next customer. And the next at first nothing happened. Neca almost thought the idea failed. But 3 days later, someone shouted her name from outside. "Neca, please help me. My hair is itching too much." Another woman came later that evening. The next day, another came back scratching. But none of them suspected her. They trusted her completely. Neca acted gentle and caring. "It's normal," she said. "Next time we will use another method." Within 3 weeks, everything changed. Her salon went from almost empty to always full. Soon, more and more women returned every few days, scratching their heads non-stop. Some came early in the morning before work. Some came during their lunch break. Some rushed in looking desperate. Neca already knew why their scalps were itching, but she pretended to be worried for them. She massaged their hair, acted caring, and said, "Don't worry, it happens sometimes." They trusted her so much that none of them imagined she was the cause. And because they returned so often, they paid more money. Some even bought her itching treatment, which was just hair oil mixed with menthol and petroleum jelly. Her income doubled, then tripled. She bought a fan, a bigger mirror, a ring light, and branded nylon bags. She painted the shop and updated her signboard. People started calling her the caring stylist. To everyone outside, Neca looked successful. She looked like the perfect example of hard work paying off. Even her mother believed God had finally blessed her daughter. At first, Neca felt good about the money. She felt she was finally winning after suffering for so long. But after some time, money made her grow comfortable, then confident, then greedy. Since the relaxer mixture made customers return fast, she thought using more of it would make them return even faster. So she started experimenting. She added more relaxer to the mixture. Then she tried other chemicals not meant for the scalp. She kept telling herself she was still in control. She believed nothing serious would happen. At first the results came fast, too fast. Some customers returned after just 2 days, scratching so much that they couldn't sleep. But still, none of them suspected Neca. They blamed heat, weather, stress, or even their braided style. They trusted her hands more than their own instincts. One afternoon, a lady came back with tears in her eyes. "My hair is painful, please check it for me," she said softly. Neca loosened some of the braids and froze for a second. A small patch of the lady's hair was missing. The scalp looked irritated. Her heart jumped, but she quickly hid her fear. "Maybe you scratched too hard," she said gently. The lady nodded and even begged her to re-braid it. That same week, another customer returned with red spots on her scalp. Another one complained that pieces of hair kept falling on her pillow at night. Still, not a single person blamed her. Neca knew this was the moment to stop. She knew she had gone too far, but she didn't stop. She told herself, if I stop now, everything will fall apart. So she continued. But she didn't know that someone had already started watching her closely. Her name was Adobe. She was quiet, calm, and very observant. She braided her hair once and returned after 3 days because of the itching. But unlike others, Adobe paid attention. She noticed how Neca always seemed ready for complaints. She noticed the way she handled the treatment. She kept her thoughts to herself. Later, Adobe told her friend Mosi, and Mosi said the same thing happened to me. That was when Adobe knew something was wrong. They decided to return to the salon together. Mosi acted like a new customer. Adobe sat quietly like she was waiting her turn. Neca welcomed them with a big smile, not knowing what was coming. Adobe watched every little thing Neca did. She noticed when Neca opened a small drawer and brought out an unlabeled white container. Adobe didn't speak yet. She waited. She wanted to be sure. When Neca finished braiding Mosi's hair, she took the same small white container and opened it to rub on Mosi's scalp. That was the moment Adobe stood up. "Stop," she said firmly. "What is inside that cream?" The whole salon went silent. Neca froze. Her heart began to beat fast. Her hand shook slightly, but she tried to smile. "It's just normal hair cream," she said. Adobe stepped closer. Her eyes were sharp and serious. "Then why is it not labeled? And why don't you ever use it on your own hair?" Mosi touched her scalp. "Wait, so this is what you used on me the last time?" Before Neca could reply, 2 other customers walked into the shop. "What's happening?" one asked. "Is something wrong?" Another said. Someone from the back of the shop shouted, "Open it! Let us smell it!" Another woman yelled, "If it's harmless, rub it on yourself first." Neca's breath got shaky. Her palms were sweaty. She pressed the container against her chest like she wanted to hide it. Finally, her body gave up. Tears began to fill her eyes. I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to harm anybody." The salon suddenly exploded with noise. Women screamed. Some cried. Some shouted angrily. A few ran outside calling neighbors. Within minutes, people gathered around the shop. "Call the police," someone yelled. And just like that, the situation became bigger than Neca could control. Officers arrived, and they took her away while the crowd watched. At the station, Neca sat with swollen, tired eyes. She didn't shout or argue. She didn't try to lie. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I only wanted to survive." Then she explained her whole story from the beginning until that moment. The officer listened and said quietly, "You wanted progress, but your method was wrong. Shortcuts have consequences." Neca's mother arrived later, crying loudly. "Why didn't you tell me you were suffering?" she asked. Neca cried even harder because she didn't have an answer. After many hours of talking and begging, the officers placed her in a small holding room. Community elders came and promised to help settle the matter. The next day, Aunt Rita also came to see her. Neca said with shaky voice, "You told me repeat customers are the secret to survival. I was only trying to survive." Aunt Rita sighed sadly. Neca, when I said repeat customers, I meant you should build trust and be honest. I never meant you should hurt people. Her words broke Neca's heart. Talent without patience becomes poison, Aunt Rita said softly. In the end, the victims agreed to settle out of court. Neca was released, but her name was damaged. Her once busy salon became silent. She took down her signboard and sat alone on the dusty floor. She felt like she had failed her dream, her family, and herself. For almost a week she didn't open the shop. She cried. She prayed. She thought deeply. Then one morning she stood up, cleaned the whole salon, and threw away every unlabeled container. She bought fresh, real products and wrote a note to herself, "No shortcuts again. Even if it takes time, I will wait." 2 days later, she opened the shop quietly. People walked past. Some stared. Some whispered about her, but one woman finally stopped and walked in. "I believe everyone deserves another chance," she said. "Can you make my hair?" Neca's eyes filled with tears. She nodded and braided honestly, slow, careful, and clean. By the end of the month, a few old customers returned. Not all, not fast, but the ones who returned trusted her again. And that was enough for her to rebuild, because this time Neca understood something important. Slow success with peace is better than fast success with regret. Thank you for watching, besties. If you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. To all my returning subscribers, thank you for always supporting this channel. And to my new viewers, I truly appreciate every one of you. See you in the next story. Stay blessed.